Venus Fridays, let's talk about how to tune into the divine feminine energy available to us this week and like what the divine feminine's going through, right? And really, for me, tuning into Venus and the Venus cycle is really all about a way to look at what's happening in the divine feminine energy and how we can like be as conscious as possible to connect with it and work with it as we go through our week, right? Because that's really what I'm the most interested in about the Venus cycle is really how do we use that and connect with that to bring more empowerment to women and to our divine feminine sides. And there's a lot of different ways that you could go about that. I just personally love working with the Venus cycle as a way to be able to check in and tune into something and see what's going on rather than it just being this like huge amorphous energy that we don't know what to do with or how to interact with. And then also saying that when we talk about the Venus cycle, it's general, right? Because depending upon what's happening with Venus or the rest of the planets is pressing into your own personal natal chart, which is your own personal like growth and evolutionary empowerment cycle and intention. You may feel the energy more intensely at times, less intensely. Maybe there's not a lot going on with the Venus cycle, but you're having a lot come up with your feminine energy and vice versa, right? So we're speaking generally, so it's just a way to start connecting into a touchstone, a place to start connecting into that energy for us on that weekly basis, right? So take whatever I say as that, right? And I'm always curious to hear like how you're feeling it, how you're experiencing, because it helps me learn more as well as I just love to know your experience. So feel free to comment or reach out and let me know how last week went, how this week's going for you, etc. Okay, so let's dive in. So um first off, today on Venus Fridays, we have, well, I'm trying to think, where do I want to start? Okay, Venus is opposite Pluto. Okay, so in the sky, they are opposite each other. So there's a geometric, dynamic relationship connection between those. And Pluto is our underworld, one of the underworld planets in alchemical astrology, just like Chiron is, right? And I originally learned this at the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School from Daniel Giamario and Kaylin Castell, right? The co-founders of that school. And Kaylin's who I teach Venus alchemy with. And I love that whole idea of looking at the planets through that shamanic lens of the three worlds. So Pluto is an underworld planet. Venus is opposite that, right as Venus is coming out of the underworld right now, right? She's been hidden in the light of the sun because she moved on the opposite side of the sun away from us. And now she's starting to get far enough away that we're going to start to see her rise into the evening sky. And that's the biggest thing that's happening with Venus over this week and the coming weeks. We will all get to visually see Venus at different times. And I'm going to show that in just a minute in the Stellarium astronomy software that if you follow me, you know I love to use and demonstrate. So anyways, Venus being opposite Pluto has that same kind of energy of Venus coming out of the underworld, right? This underworld focus. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that because in the Venus cycle, she goes to the underworld following the Inanna story, the first written myth we have in the world, right? This is really significant, is about the Venus cycle, right? Again, the first written myth we have on those old clay tablets from the Middle East is about the Venus cycle, is about the divine feminine. And that's significant, right? But in the story, Inanna, Venus, goes to the underworld and she goes through this death and rebirth cycle, right? She meets with her sister, the queen of the underworld, and we can associate this with like the dark goddess, right? Which is something that people are more and more feeling comfortable with looking at our shadow sides, knowing the importance of that, right? And I was reading something recently about the dark goddesses. She comes back more and more online, and we appreciate the destruction that leads to the construction on the other side. The more we'll be moving in that direction, right? If we keep trying to push it away in our shadow side, then everything just keeps coming out sideways, and we see like the chaos that we're seeing on such a wide scale. And that the dark goddess leads us into this destruction that helps us to rebuild in a much healthier way. And I love that because she can really be our guide while we're going through these challenging times. So as Venus is coming out of the underworld, she's gone through this alchemical transformation, right? She's coming out of the cocoon, and she's opposite Pluto. So still kind of finishing that clearing, transformational work until she rises, becomes visible again in the evening sky, and we start the reclamation process back through the chakras. So if you're interested to learn more about the Venus cycle, how to work with it, what it means for you, I'm offering a free live teaching about the Venus cycle. I'm calling it Venus Curious. Empower your divine feminine with the Venus cycle. And I'm teaching that with Kaylin K. Castell, my co-teacher at Venus Alchemy. And we're teaching that this upcoming Wednesday, July 17th at 1:30 Mountain Daylight Time. And I'll put the link in the video so you can register for that if you're interested. And if you can't be live with us in the middle of the day like that on a Wednesday, then we'll send you the recording as well. So that's below. Okay, so let's look at what this means for Venus to be coming out of the underworld. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to look at stellarium.org, the free astronomy software. I'm always talking about what a marvel it is. And here we are, right? Tonight on Friday, July 12th, right? So here's the sun just setting. And we're going to keep moving forward. I left all the constellations and the constellation art up so you can see. And also here you can see that the moon, well, we'll come to that tomorrow. Okay, well, first things first. I want to jump all over the place. So I'm going to keep progressing. The sun is setting. The sun is setting. It's getting more towards night, and then slowly you could start to see Venus right there on that horizon line, right? See that there? Really faint. So it's going to take some time for some of us to even be able to see Venus. But if you have somewhere where you live and you have a completely flat western horizon line and really good eyesight, you may be starting to see Venus tonight. And I really would love to hear when you first get to see Venus. I live in the mountains in Colorado, so it's going to take me a while, right? If you imagine a huge horizon line here, right? All these mountains, it's going to take time until Venus is far enough away from the sun to be above those mountains after the sun has set for me to visually be able to see her. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the sun off so we can see really where everything is, right? There's Venus right on that horizon line. But keep looking, because we're each going to be able to see Venus in the night sky in the coming days and weeks for all of us, okay? So I'm going to back up just a little bit, bring the sun back up to this horizon line. And I'll just add that Venus coming into the evening sky time is profound, right? We're into this third phase of the Venus cycle, and it's a time of, she's been through the transformation. We're coming out of the cocoon of the underworld in that deep, like internal growth, healing time, and ready to be visible and seen again out in the world. But we start off kind of like raw. It takes time, right? So in the story of Inanna, that myth about Venus, she moves back through these 7 gates over the entire time that she's in the evening sky. So it's going to be until March of 2025 that Venus will be in the evening sky. And each month, when the moon meets with Venus, she moves through one of those gates. So we overlay the chakras on those 7 gates. And the first one will be at the root chakra. So we're starting to reclaim, regain our power. We get to focus on our root chakra, then the sacral chakra, and keep moving up each month till we come back into that full empowerment. Then Venus will move between the sun and us, the earth, and we'll start a new cycle when she rises into the morning sky in March of next year. So that's where we are. It's a really profound time. So it's a time of kind of culminating with that healing that the underworld has offered us. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have healed everything. You don't have to have completely arrived, but it's like, okay, I'm kind of ready to sort of like the growth and change I've gone through. I'm ready to kind of start, being the new baby foal, right? Kind of wobbling around on my feet as I start to regain my power and strength, coming into being visibly seen in the evening sky, which is a very much more grounded kind of earthy energy to this next part of the Venus cycle. Okay, so next thing, tomorrow on Saturday, the sun and the moon come into their square. And look here, the moon is meeting right with Spica, the hand of the priestess constellation, or the shaft of wheat, or the ear of corn that she carries, that she nurtures. And we have this Libra waxing half moon, right? So let's just talk a little bit about that. I'm going to stop my share. That some of the feedback I got was to kind of go back and forth and not just spend all the time in solarium. So thanks for your feedback. I totally listen. So the waxing half moon, that's a time when the moon is gaining light, and it's the part of the cycle where we want to be building the energy on the new moon intention that we set at the new moon. If you didn't set an intention, no problem, but think it's about taking action and keep moving our energy towards what we want to be creating in our lives. That's that waxing time of the cycle, moving towards the full moon, gaining light. If we overlay the menstrual cycle on the moon cycle, you think of, and your cycles may be aligned differently than this, but I'm just using it as like an energetics. It's like the new moon is the time when we cycle, the dark of the moon, right? Kind of the underworld for the moon. Same as we've been talking about Venus, Pluto, that dark goddess time where we go inward, go into the cocoon. We need that time with ourselves. And then the full moon is that time of ovulation. Again, your cycle may be opposite to that, but you know what I'm talking about, the waxing and the waning aspects of the menstrual cycle. And the full moon is the ovulation, the bright, we're shining out into the world, right? That energetic. So that time from the dark moon to the ovulation, from our period to the ovulation, is like the energy is building, right? We have energy, that actional piece. It's good time to take action. And that's what that waxing half moon energy in Libra provides for us. So being in Libra, it could touch into our relationships. It could touch into our relationship with ourselves and how we see ourselves with others, or you may experience it completely differently based on what is happening in your individual natal chart, right? And then then the next day, the moon will move into Scorpio, and we have that Scorpio, again, that depth. There's a resonance with that underworld energy, kind of diving into the deep. So it's interesting, as the moon is waxing, we have this kind of underworld energy happening. So you could watch for, getting kind of jacked up around your shadow side, or wanting to really work on your shadow side, right? That's the kind of energy Scorpio can bring in. Then on Monday, let's go back to Stellarium here for a second. Mars, our divine masculine planet, is conjunct, meets with Uranus, right? So this is a big deal. We have Mars connecting with Uranus. And I want to show that in the Stellarium software. Okay, so here is on Monday, the 15th. And let's just go back in time a little bit and bring Mars into the sky. So here we can see, right? Mars, which you can't, some people have seen Uranus in the sky with the naked eye. I personally haven't. This is not necessarily going to be the best time to see Mars and to see Uranus. Sorry, you'll be able to see Mars in the early morning sky. So from like kind of 2 to 5 a.m. Mountain Time is when Mars is visible right now. But here's Mars and Uranus meeting exactly on Monday. So what does this mean for us? So here we have Mars, our divine masculine planet, and Uranus, our planet of like change, growth, more like universal consciousness. That's what I like to think of Mars really representing. I mean, Uranus, sorry about that. So here's an opportunity for the masculine, our actional sides, right? To focus on more awareness, more consciousness, and any changes that we might need to make around that, right? So for example, are we so in our masculine side that we're constantly doing, never taking time for rest or being, which is our feminine side, right? Doesn't mean the feminine isn't actional. It just means the feminine is about being like present with our body, present with what we need, grounded onto the earth. And the masculine side is more like keep moving. It's more air and fire, keep going, right? Is that overtaking us, which is definitely what we see a lot in the world. There's always that emphasis on like, go, do. If you like take time off, it's like you feel kind of like guilt or something of like, oh, I should be more productive, right? So maybe that's something that this Uranus piece is asking for change, more consciousness, more awareness, right? Uranus is a celestial world planet, an upper world planet from the shamanic perspective, along with Neptune. And I feel like both of those planets, when they are aspecting things on our charts, or in this case, coming into this dynamic relationship with another major planet, they ask for us to connect into that spiritual celestial realm, right? Neptune does that through the heart and feeling, like that universal love place. And Uranus does that through that universal consciousness awareness kind of place. So how can we bring more universal consciousness awareness to our divine masculine sides during this conjunction that's coming, right? So listen, just pay attention, right? Maybe you'll notice things you want to change. Maybe you're not ready all the way there yet, but just having the awareness and the understanding of like, gosh, man, I spend a lot of time in that masculine energy, or here's the ways that I support the unhealthy masculine that I don't want to be, or here's ways I want to be stepping into what I feel are the more healthy aspects of the masculine, right? That's what this Uranus Mars conjunction can bring. Then on Tuesday, the moon will move into Sagittarius, which is a little bit more of that same kind of like universal awareness kind of energy. So it kind of piggybacks and helps support that. And then on Wednesday, the moon will come into a trine with Venus, which again, I'm interested in feedback. I'm curious to see how you all experience these different relationships of the moon with Venus. I tend to focus more on the conjunction, but I'm curious to hear how you all experience the different dynamic relationships of the moon with different planets, other than the conjunction when they're right together, like the opposition or the square, the trine or the sextile. And then finally, I'm just going to end with a little bit of aromatherapy because I was asked to do that and I forgot last week. So I want to talk about, because the feminine is stepping back into her grounded, more empowered, out into the evening sky place. I'm going to talk about sage true. I love this plant and this essence so much. It's growing in my garden right now, and it has these like beautiful, gorgeous, like purpley, like violet flame flowers right now. So sage true is like your regular garden sage. Like if you go and get fresh sage or use sage out of your, spices rack, that's sage true. It's common sage that we use in cooking. And often we'll think of clary sage as being so supportive for the feminine. Um, right? We hear a lot about clary sage or geranium for the feminine, which is great. They both are, but we don't talk much about sage true. And it is one of my favorites for like hormonal balancing, grounding, getting into our body. The sages are amazing. I mean, all of the essences are amazing for helping us ground. Some of them can kind of take us up and out, but sage true, like when I smell it, it's this like very earthy, almost astringent, but very like yummy, desirable, like you want to move towards it. Like it's so yummy in food and cooking. I like to use this one on my belly a lot to help with hormonal balancing and just helping me connect into that divine feminine energy. That's really what I like using the aromatherapy for, is like as a touchstone, is a way to help me connect into the vibration and the energies that I want to be cultivating more within my life. So anyways, thanks for being here with me. Again, I have the free webinar on the Venus cycle, what it means for you, how to work with it, and then some of the highlights of this upcoming evening sky time coming this upcoming Wednesday, July 17th. I'll put the link below and you can register if you want. It's free, it's live if you can be with us, or otherwise we'll record it. And thanks for your time. See you next week.